Oh, hi there, folks. This is WP-Tonic Live, our regular Saturday show where we talk about WordPress news. We normally have one main topic. This week, it's going to be how to select a WordPress premium theme, and we're hopefully going to give some insights. We've got got my normal co-host here, John Locke, and I've got one of our regular panelists, Sally, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to get on with the show. If some of the other regular panel joins us, we're going to be letting them in the room. If you got any questions, put them into chat. I'm going to allow John and Sally to kind of vet you, and as long as you seem legit, we're going to let you in. If you're a troll, you're not getting in. It's as simple as that. So go away, Sally. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay. For a minute, I thought you were going to say, go away, you're a troll. My name is Sally Getch. My business is WP Fangirl. I organize the East Bay WordPress meetup in Oakland, California. We're having a meeting tomorrow afternoon to talk about Let's Encrypt and Cloudflare. I am, a person who has opinions about things, and that seems to be why Jonathan invites me here.
I like you, Sally. You're direct, but I'd rather have it direct than ponce around, Sally. Go on, John.
Yes. Well, I picked up a little directness from my husband, who is Dutch. But some of it is, I used to teach, and, I would put extensive comments on my students' essays.
Yeah, I bet you love me then. I was a bullshit student. Go on, John. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm John Locke. And I design and build websites as Lockdown Design. So there you go.
That's great.
Pretty simple.
Go on, Sally. Hopefully someone's going to join us for this blab, but they normally pile in. But start off with the news story that you found.
Okay, so I have been, paying attention to some nudist items, and I noticed that there seems to be a little WP drama brewing over the updated hosting recommendations on the WordPress.org site. These had been not changed for a long time, and when they were updated, there was a little sort of, okay, we've got new listings, but we don't know how they were made. And, we have no idea what the criteria are for getting on here. And then there was some back and forth where there were some explanations, but apparently there were a lot of people who commented on the subject in a really negative way. I mean, they were very harsh to the person who'd gone through the survey results and so on. So there's now an updated post about the recommendations with some responses from Matt Mullenweg. And let me drop that link in the chat. There we go. And there is another, there's kind of a comment on the whole thing, basically saying, quit being mean to people who work for Automatic, because a lot of them put in extra time, and there's really not any reason to click to open link. Let's see what happens. Oh, I see.
Doesn't work.
Yes, no, that doesn't seem to work. Although I promise you that the file is there. So I wonder if that's a blab.
It's a blab.
But basically, don't beat up on people just because they work for Automatic versus other some other kind of a WordPress company. And that part of the issue is that apparently in the support forum, if people ask questions about hosting, the support volunteers are not supposed to recommend any specific host, just to direct people to this page. And there was a lot of speculation about, so why is it, how is it that these people get on here? Because, the old listings where you looked at that and you thought, this must be pay to play, because most of those are terrible hosts.
Yeah, that's what I always thought, yeah.
They were the dirty group, the good, the bad, and they were the ugly.
Oh, yeah. And, I think part of it is those were put on there so long ago that those places were actually still decent hosting companies for WordPress, like, before they were bought by EIG. But so the list has been updated. There are basically 4 recommendations, and they're Bluehost, DreamHost, Flywheel, and SiteGround. Now, at this point, all of those companies do offer WordPress-specific hosting, and I have not tried the WordPress hosting at Bluehost or at DreamHost. But presumably it is better than their regular hosting. But there were a lot of objections to the fact that Bluehost is on this list because their shared hosting is god awful. So I think that's part of where the fuss came in. And the fact is that Bluehost and DreamHost are both very big sponsors of WordCamps. And there is speculation that this might influence it. And I think this is one of those things where, some people are getting very upset about something that doesn't necessarily matter all that much, because you can find a zillion places for hosting recommendations about WordPress pretty easily. There was a recent post by Chris Lemma that basically said, just don't use anything from EIG. And
agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, you can hardly argue with it based on experience, and you can ask around at your meetup, or clients will often ask me for hosting recommendations, and depending on their needs, I will provide them. So it's
I've got to say that's brave.
Well, I know where I don't want them, right? If they're on one of these awful hosts, I will generally recommend that they switch because, they're just going to get terrible performance. So, I think it's good that they're updating it. It's probably good that some questions are asked. It's not good when people's responses are nasty and trollish, as we know from, experiencing the blab trolls. And I think, people should be free to ask questions, and that's not a license to be rude.
No, I think that I'm going to pause this because I want to. We're back again, folks, and John's got some thoughts about WordPress and hosting.
Yeah, I have thoughts. So I just learned about this from Sally here. So apparently, the WordPress.org, they have a page for hosting the recommended hosts, and many people have pointed out, Bluehost is always been on this list, and they're still on this list, and they're kind of not known as being a really great host. In fact, they only have a 6 out of 10 approval rating. And I guess there is a controversy in the forums where people were saying why are they here? But you see Flywheel and SiteGround here, and no WP Engine, no Pagely, none of the other hosting companies that you would think of when you normally think of WordPress hosting. And I think they were saying there's no correlation between paying Automatic and being on this list. But let's look at the facts. They sponsor a lot of WordCamps. And as I think that there is some sort of correlation, even if it's not a direct correlation, because this is how a lot of things work in the real world. So I don't know.
Which I think is fine, as long as you make it clear that's why they're on there. But I didn't have time to read this piece, Sally. What does it actually? Did you have time to read it? What does it? How do they rationalise this change? And what is there any rationality why they're?
I don't know that they actually addressed. They basically, the article goes through in great detail the conversations this guy had with various people at Automatic, and then the responses that Matt sent. I think what it kind of comes down on is, if you say, conclusion, I I still think WordPress.org can do better with its hosting recommendations, and I'm not going to stop advocating them until they're better. So basically, in the end, it comes down to, if you have a problem with it, blame Matt. And don't complain to anyone. Well, that's basically what Matt said, is, look, if you're going to bitch about it, bitch to me. So I think we're somewhat unresolved here, and we'll probably see further changes over the course of time. And I think people would, people would probably be happier if the hosts they recommend most to their clients, or the ones they use themselves, are on there. There's always going to be somebody who, because they're not going to list every single possible host. There's always going to be somebody who objects that, so-and-so isn't on here and should be, or, I had a bad experience with these other people and I don't think they should be there.
Yeah, I think we just continue this for another 5, because the other stories, I don't know what you feel like, Sally, but I think this is the most newsy story, and then we get on to our main topic. How does that sound? I think this is so typical WordPressy, isn't it? This is gonna let Jackie in. Hello, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi. Hey,
Jackie.
Hi, Julie. Hi, John.
Hello.
This is,
to me, this is so typical WordPressy. I can understand why people got a bit upset, because this is about money. And secondly, there's no real explanation why these companies were chosen. And Matt's reply is very typical Matt, isn't it? So it's a typical, you can see why this builds up in a way, can't you, Sally?
Yeah, you can see why it happens, and at the same time, I think it will probably settle down the way the big flap over what's going into Customizer settled down after the last few releases. It seems as if this is a community that gets outraged fairly easily.
They're individualists. So, Jackie, you'd like to introduce yourself and what you got anything to say about this?
I'm Jackie D'Elia, and I agree with you. I was surprised by the list. I was surprised Flywheel was on it, and WP Engine wasn't. I've used Flywheel, and it's a very good host, and I really like it. And I thought that was probably one of the best ones on that list. And SiteGround, of course, I use SiteGround a lot. It's a good fallback for me when I want a host where I can put multiple domains on that host, and I love their Go Geek plan.
What was that?
That wasn't me.
That was the train. I live next to the railroad tracks, and even with the headset, it gets picked up.
All right.
So SiteGround, that's a real good go-to host for me when I want to use multiple domains on it. I like their Go Geek plan, which was what I said. So, but I was surprised. I was surprised that that there were only 4, and that those were the 4 that were chosen. So yes.
Well, I'm gonna try and mix it up, folks. This is my interpretation. SiteGround, I've used them for a long time. I call them my Bulgarian friends from the Icarus Files, the film. So I sample my English humour. I call them my Bulgarian friends, because they are based in Bulgaria, which they're fantastic people. They're all about discount. It's funny enough, give you a tip. I'm not sure if they're still doing it. When you first go in, if you use the back button, you get a box flip up, and they offer you normally a half price deal when you first set it up, and they're fine. What I would say is, compared to some of the, they compete in the cheaper side of the market, and their support is superior than some of the other cheaper suppliers. because they do. I think now they do offer some telephone support. They never used to, but their actual ticketing system and their email support is pretty well worked out. And the average technical assistance that you get from them is reasonable. That their training of their basic support level staff seems a bit superior than some of the other cheaper hosting providers. One of the problems, if you try and close your account, they do have a tendency to keep on charging. That's my experience of them. You can never get a refund from them for nothing. If they charge you and you're not getting your money back, they don't give refunds on anything. That's my experience. DreamHost, really lovely people, godforsaken interface. It's one of the most godforsaken customer interfaces I've had the misfortune ever to come across. Flywheel, never used them, heard really good stories. Bluehost, I don't know why they're on their list. I have no idea why they're on the list of recommendations of WordPress. I wouldn't. They're not terrible compared to some other people I had the misfortune of having to use because the client insisted, but they're not the best either. So I have no idea why WP Engine ain't on there. I have no idea. That's kind of puzzling. InMotion, well, I've had good things said. I like InMotion. I've had good dealings with them. Other people have had terrible dealings with them. Their ticketing system is not threaded and it's not really worked out that well. If you read them, you normally can get to somebody that actually knows what they're talking about pretty rapidly. But their ticketing system that they're using is pretty crappy, really. That's my experiences. Any of you like to comment?
I'll jump in here. The four that are on this list, I use Flywheel for my main site. I use SiteGround for a lot of sites. I also use WP Engine. And those are kind of like the three that I recommend to most people, depending on what their setup is. Bluehost and DreamHost, I haven't really used those too much. I'll take that back. I have had clients that have had those, and I will agree with you that the interface is not as amazing as some of the other ones out there. But I think Matt's statement shows that he's taking the heat for the other people who are involved in the decision making process. He's basically said, like, if you're going to blame somebody for who's not on this list, then blame me, because it's all. Let's face it. Like, being on that page, it is add up to a whole bunch of cheddar if you can get on that list. And I'm sure that there's like other reasons that aren't being stated. So if WP Engine, it is kind of a mystery that they're not on that list. But who knows? Maybe they need to sponsor more WordCamps. Who knows? So,
yeah, I use SiteGround for my own sites and for a lot of clients, and they just seem to keep getting better at certain things. Like there's pretty much a one-click install for Let's Encrypt SSL certificates.
Yes.
And, the support is good. And if you have a client where they want their email from their same place that their web host is, which, by no means everybody does. I have a lot of clients who already have email set up through something like Office 365. But it's good for that. It's good for having multiple sites on. I've never tried to get a refund from them. But I have occasionally talked them into renewal discounts since the you get a big discount when you sign up, and you tend not to get a noticeable discount when you renew. I suggested that rewarding your loyal customers might be beneficial in addition to trying to bring in new ones.
Oh, if you ask for a discount, Sally, they're always prepared to negotiate, but you're never going to get a refund. Just try, Sally. Good luck to you.
Jonathan, one thing on SiteGround I noticed, I think it was this week, they announced they were lowering the price. If you have an SSL certificate, a standard one, they're going to make it a wild card automatically, and they're going to lower, I think they're going to reduce the price of the wild card 50% now. And then the Let's Encrypt is free, which they were like one of the first ones that I heard of that were
so far I've
openly
only
supporting
found
that.
one other place that will do as easy an install of your Let's Encrypt, and it renews automatically, which is nice.
Yeah, they used to really, because it was cheap hosting, folks. They had the WordPress special hosting packages, which you just mentioned, Jackie, and I think they're pretty good value, especially because you get a whacking big initial discount for the first year, like what Sally said. Then they hump it up, but if you really Sally knows how to negotiate, so she managed to get them to lower it down again.
Yeah, not as much as the initial one, but and I understand that, because that's a loss leader pricing. If they can't give you that every year and still make money, and we want them to make money, because otherwise they'll go out of business, and we won't have any hosting.
Yeah, but I found them, compared to the other cheap hosting providers that are out there, their actual ticketing, it's the support element. Obviously, I think I'm not talking about their specialized WordPress hosting packages. I'm talking about their basic hosting package. Their support infrastructure, the ticketing system, and how they deal with it is better, in my experience, than a lot of the other cheaper providers. You can do a lot better, though. But if you're just looking for really cheap hosting, they're probably one of the better ones, where I look at the support infrastructure that's available there. I had a client who unfortunately is on GoDaddy that I spoke to last week, and they spent 45 minutes trying to get the phone answered.
Yeah, well, it's the one thing. GoDaddy has made some improvements in the support department. They started this GoDaddy Pro thing, where if you are a developer, you can get support for your clients really pretty quickly, and that's been pretty good in the support department, and fairly knowledgeable people that I've dealt with there. But I find that although GoDaddy's WordPress hosting is vastly better than its shared hosting for WordPress sites, the admin is incredibly slow. The sites run tolerably quickly on the front end, but the admin is incredibly slow. And it always seems to, time out in the middle of updating your plugins, and, relatively straightforward things like that. So I have put a few clients on there because they were very budget conscious, and GoDaddy was, and that's probably your cheapest option for, optimized hosting. But it's not where I would necessarily go first.
And to finish, got any thoughts, John, before we move on to the main theme? I'm going to ask Jackie as well.
I think I covered it. Like I said, yeah.
Because we could spend the whole 2 hours whinging about different hosting, could we?
Right. Trying to beat each other's worst experience with a web host story.
Now you got next week's topic.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably have. I think we've exhausted. Have we, Jackie? We've exhausted this. Shall we go?
We're good.
Shall we go on to something more interesting, maybe? Well, it is interesting, but it's one of those conversations in the WordPress that you can go on forever. So let's go on to the main topic of the day, really, before how to pick the right pre-in WordPress theme. And Jackie, we've got a Slack channel. If you want to email me, I'll be quite happy to add you to my Slack channel. Put my email address in here.
Okay.
And you're always welcome, Jackie, on a Saturday. Want to join us? It's very informal. So I in their Slack channel, I put some points in, and I emailed it to my normal panel that sometimes come on. What are some of the points? And number one, I you can put them in all different order. I put strive for simplicity. What I meant by that was I'm not really keen on these bloated Swiss Army knife themes that unfortunately are really very popular. What's your reaction to that, Sally?
Absolutely. Those kitchen sink themes have a lot of sales, but I have seen sometimes clients who wanted one, bought it, freaked out by how complicated the interface was with all those built-in things, half of which they weren't in fact going to use, and decided to and never ended up using it. And I think by now all of those who work in WordPress have read the numerous articles about, what belongs in a theme and what belongs in a plugin. And most things belong in a plugin. So that if you change themes, you will still be able to preserve them. Your custom post types belong in a plugin, even if it's a plugin you write yourself for the developer just to register the custom post types. Your sliders belong in a plugin. If you have, fancy galleries, if you're going to use a page builder, and any of those kinds of things belong in plugins. And it's interesting. I was working on a pro bono project this weekend with somebody who's a designer. She's a great designer, but she doesn't know a lot about WordPress. And I said something about, well, if you're, for your testimonials, you want to plug in, for your this, you want to plug in. She's like, wow, I thought if it wasn't in the theme, you couldn't do it. And I think there may be a lot of people out there who end up buying themes with a bunch of stuff they don't need that causes security risk because they don't realize they can get a plugin. Never mind, knowing which plugin is going to be best and how to navigate the however many tens of thousands of plugins are in the repository right now.
So what do you think, Jackie? Go for simplicity?
Yes. I personally, for client projects, use my own starter theme. For me, it's easier to maintain it and easier to build it out. And I can easily adapt my starter theme to look like any of the themes that people would see. For the most part, I'm comfortable. I totally agree on all of the functionality needing to be in a plugin, and that is what I do with how I'm working. When I first started off, I think one of the themes I was using was Winning Agent theme. I was doing some real estate sites, and as Sally mentioned, in that theme, the custom post types are in the theme. Okay, so they have like a community thing. And I ended up writing a plugin so that it could be used by other themes could get that.
And I have used that plugin, and it's great.
That. Thank you. So that basically, I agree, solves that functionality should really be in a plugin. And I would keep it simple. There are a lot of nice themes that, depending on your client, I mean, if you have a client that has a very specific need and they know exactly what they want it to look like, and it looks like this theme, right? Depending on the size of the project, what they want to do with it, you may want to just use that theme and customize it. I find, though, I work more efficiently when I know my playground. So, and I know where everything is, and I know how I build all my style sheets. I'm using SAS and I'm using Git, and that's my workflow. So for the most part, most of the themes you're going to buy, you're not going to get that developer version where you have the SAS files and the other things. So you end up starting to work in just a CSS file. And for me, that's I just feel like I'm working backwards at that point. And I'd rather just stay in my own rhythm and my own flow. So I would rather maybe look at that theme and then take the parts of it that we would like to adapt for my starter theme and then go with that. I find it's easier to maintain too that way. So that's my thoughts.
I totally understand it, but it's got but
I think you're talking too about two different groups. Yes. There's a group of do-it-yourself folks that want to put up their own website, and for them, a theme that very closely matches what they want is the best choice for them. If you're wanting to have a custom site built out, then that may not be the best choice. Because then you're going to want your developer involved. And once you're working with that, then you need to definitely build it out on some type of a starter theme that's easy to maintain.
Well, I don't know where you start with your prices, but there's going to be a big difference between getting pure custom
Exactly.
than just buying a theme or buying a theme and that maybe having some custom work done to it. I don't know.
And I think the big challenge is plugins, though, and compatibility and how well that code is written in those plugins. And there's so many. When you go to look for a testimonial plugin or start
I
picking
gave
some
up
out of
getting
the air,
theme
that most
plugins after having a couple of different ones screw up on me. That you'd think might have been reliable, given who built them, but they weren't being maintained. Or
I actually took one out of the repo,
right,
and then
I just roll my own whenever I need a directory and put use advanced custom fields and put that in, whatever specific things they need to say about their team members. But in a lot of cases, there are plugins that as a developer you've worked with before, they work well. They don't run into problems, and so you tend to use them over again. And that's part of, the value for somebody in hiring a consultant.
So let's try and, because what I wanted to say is, let's say you've got a small business owner, they're looking at WordPress, they're looking at buying a premium theme. So my suggestion is, if you go into one of these marketplaces, which there are various, or you're going to certain theme shops that have a selection of themes, it's best not to go for one of these all-embracing, what I call
That's right.
Swiss
It's
Army
got
knife
10 sliders,
solution.
even though you'll only use one.
Well, 20 sliders at least. That's why it's got on number one, isn't it?
Like that.
English sliders. So don't go for something that's got like 20 sliders. It's got like 20 inbuilt custom post types. You can choose like 25 different color choices. My experience of these is they're a bit monstrous and they're devils unless you're dealing with one all the time. To find what you're supposed to change, where is that your experience, John? But you don't really deal with that anyway, because you're a bit like Jackie. You're kind of custom design,
for the most part. Not to say that I haven't. There are definitely projects where, let's say, like it's a pre-existing theme, and the client comes to me, or depending on who I'm working with. In a collaboration, sometimes there's premium themes involved, and they're usually a mess. It's really hard. I mean, I just got to say that there's two types of customers that buy like premium themes to use. The first type is, like Jackie and Sally mentioned, is the person who's trying to do it themselves. Small business owner that thinks, they should be able to put together a site for $100. And so they want to do it themselves. And so they pick, one of these Swiss Army knife themes, and they kind of muddle through it for about 6 months trying to, get it set up. And maybe they hire a developer. And that's something that I encourage, any, business owner to do, is hire a consultant, hire a WordPress developer who knows their stuff to help you pick a theme, to help you figure out what you want to do. I think the marketplaces like Theme Forest make it really easy for people to think that they can do it themselves for very cheap, but it ends up being a lot of work. And whatever they save in time, whatever they save in money, I should say, they end up spending in time that they should be focusing on their business. So when you look at it like that, it's not really a gain. The second type of people who end up buying like a premium theme would be agencies. And I know like Jackie, anybody who does Genesis, like Sally and Jackie, they, you're dealing with Genesis. So you're dealing with the same, Genesis is kind of like a starter, theme anyway. It's a blank canvas for the most part. And you have, child themes that you can do. I mean, Jackie has her own starter theme. The way I do is I develop usually in vanilla WordPress with something like underscores and build it out, but there are a lot of, I would say probably 85% of like agencies out there for like a smaller budget project, they use a premium theme as a base because they figure it's going to save time. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't always save time.
Mm-hmm.
And it really like causes a big performance hit to the site. Most of the sites are not very fast because, as you mentioned, Jonathan, they had 25 sliders, 26 custom post types, and all of
that code is being loaded whether you use it or not.
And the other thing too is like a lot of those
Exactly.
are heavily reliant on short codes to build the pages. You know, in anything with Visual Composer, garbage. Anything that uses like short codes to like build the pages, it's just terrible for performance. It is just makes your site bog down and makes it very slow, and that's not what you want.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, John. What I would say is kind of I'm trying to give advice to somebody that might not have all these insights is don't buy one of these Army Swiss knives. That's number one. Number three, in these marketplaces, try and do a search, check it over, read the comments. I suggest that you send a pre-sales question to the developer on one of these marketplaces or the theme shop. Be quite frank about it. If they don't come back to you pretty quick with a pre-sales question, how do you think they're going to answer a normal support question? So that might be a thing you should do just to test the waters, is send them a quick support pre-sales question and read the comments that have been left by other people. See how long they've been on that marketplace, how many themes have they produced, and what people are saying in general about, is the support forum open, or do you have to buy the theme to see the support forum? All these basically pre-checks. I'd like to go on to, and then maybe we can go back later on about some of the things John said, because I would totally agree with you, John, is then we go on to point two, it's got to be responsive. I take that, you should.
Right, that's not just applying to premium themes, free themes, premium themes. It's 2016. Your site needs to be mobile friendly.
And you should have some accessibility built into it by now too. I mean, if they're ignoring all of that and you are as a developer too, you're still got blinders on and you're not paying attention to it. Now's the time to start,
in general, with all accessibility friendliness is also good for your SEO.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I totally agree with you, Jackie and Sally. But a lot of this is budget driven. Unfortunately, a lot of it, So I can't highly advise somebody. You've got to buy something that's adaptive, that's responsive, that will look decent on a mobile device. But there's responsive and there's responsive, and that's one of the reasons why you would hire Jackie or any of my free co-panelists, because they understand the principles of responsive and the issues around that, and you don't. But if your budget can't stretch to hire one of my illustrious panelists, you still should have some understanding about what responsive really means. And then we go on to number three. This is an interesting one. I'll be interested in what the panelists say about browser capacity, compatibility. Sorry, folks. How do you deal with that, Jackie? How do you advise a client around browser compatibility?
Well, I'm probably not real popular about all of that. I'm not a big fan of supporting the real old browsers. I think it's time to let it go and move on. And I like code to be lean and as lean as possible. So I'm not writing stuff to support Internet Explorer 6, 7, or 8, and I'm not worrying about it. So, but I realize that you might have some clients that have specific needs where they have to support that. They've got some old infrastructure and it's a government agency or something like that. So there are situations where you do need to provide that compatibility and, backwards compatibility for it. But on a day-to-day basis and the work that I do with the clients that I work with, that's usually not an issue here. So I use an auto prefixer with my SAS, so I can basically push it back a couple of versions. But I've started using like Flexbox a lot and some of the other things, and they're not going to be supported in those old browsers. And I don't think clients have the budget to write all of that compatibility into the theme or whatever, to the work that you're doing, because you've got a whole layout done in Flexbox. Okay, well, now I got to go back and write a bunch of other stuff and conditional things for some old browser that 1.1% of a percent is ever going to use. So in those cases, I think you just need to let it go.
I knew somebody
that's my advice.
Basically, for the IE6 people, they had like pretty much we just don't serve them a style sheet.
Well, and you know what? That's the other thing. I think there's a lot of people were initially struggling with how to get things to look like the current design would look. And I think it's perfectly fine if I might even want you put something in there that don't even load a style sheet.
Right.
If it's on, this and that. Just
right. Right. If your client, for some
there.
reason, because consumers are much more likely to have newer browsers than businesses are, because it's such a big deal to upgrade the operating systems, upgrade the equipment, upgrade when you've got, hundreds or thousands of employees that you're dealing with. So it's, kind of within the enterprise that you're most likely to find that. So are you making some, if you know that you're making a site that's mostly going to be used by people on legacy systems, then you probably want to make sure that it's compatible with other things. Otherwise, I think you can limit your cross-browser testing to browsers that are, within the last few versions at least.
What I would say, Sally, is I was looking if somebody's buying one of these commercial themes off a marketplace, what do you think is a reasonable position for that theme maker? Should it just support the latest browser versions, Safari, Chrome, Firefox, and whatever version of Explorer is called now?
Well, it's interesting because, Windows 10 comes with Microsoft Edge. To go to the Microsoft website to download anything, you have to switch over to Internet Explorer. I think there's not very much you can do with Edge yet. But the more recent versions of IE are pretty much okay. And I would say, the client is going to know their audience, but they're not necessarily going to know their audience's technical capabilities.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking this, Sally, when I wasn't just a maintenance guy, I used to have these insane conversations. We expect this website. We want it to look perfect in all browsers, and we want it to look perfect in 6 or 7 or 8. And we say we can do it, but it will be like 60% more to do it. And then that would end the conversation, and we'd be back to sanity again. So, John,
I don't know. I've never noticed anything on ThemeForest that claimed to be compatible with IE6. I have a feeling that a lot of my clients, a lot of the people I've run into at the low budget end, they have no clue about things like browser versions, or they know what they look at the internet in. If it looks good to them, they're going to buy it.
Well, they don't, Sally, until they've got their XP machine that's still running Explorer 7 or Explorer 8, which I think I'm correct, John, aren't I, John? That I think on XP machine you can only upgrade it to 8, Explorer 8, can't you? You can't go.
Yeah, I think 8's
Am I right about that, John?
Pretty sure, yeah.
It's one of these cheap. They still got some XP machine running, Sally, and they still insist on running Explorer on it. Where I would say, that is a deadly combination for many factors. And if you're going to run XP, you should only run most of your browser experience with some version of Chrome, and definitely not run Explorer. But that's why that conversation happens, Sally, because they normally got some freaking old XP machine. And what do you reckon, John?
So I want to jump in with that, because what Sally was saying and what Jackie was saying is definitely true. There are projects where you need to support IE 8 and 9. And so what you want to do is you want to find out like what operating system like your clients are actually using in their office. and make sure that whatever you're building supports that. Because otherwise they're going to say the site looks broken. And there's a lot of people that still have XP. That's just reality.
Yeah, I think they need to get over it and use Chrome if they want to keep on using the 15.
But I can tell you this though, like for the client though, you can. It's easy to say that, but they're used to using what they use.
Yeah, true. But I'm kind of linking it to how to choose. So my personal advice when it comes to choosing a commercial theme is that it should support all the latest browsers. And if you think for some reason your audience is utilizing old equipment or a particular browser, then that's when you have to contact the theme developer and say, is it going to be really hard to adapt this if I hire a developer to make it blah, blah, blah? And good luck to you. That's what I say. But I'll try to be upbeat here. So that's my advice. And I think all the other things we've discussed, folks, is really important as well. Number 4, I think this might be becoming really important, translation. So it supports multiple languages. What's your thoughts about that, Sally?
I think if you're selling a commercial theme, that's important because you want people to be able to use it who are in as many different places, speak as many different languages as possible. For a person buying a theme, it may or may not be that important. I mean, they're going to want a theme that's available in their own language by preference, but it may or may not be important depending on where their visitors and customers are coming from. So because the translation ready thing is about the back end of WordPress, it's about the admin. So there's not going to be very much that people visiting their site see. But if you have customers in a lot of languages, then you need to look at something that, yes, might be compatible with WPML or otherwise, the developer has thought about what happens when you need to translate the front end of the site and create multiple language versions.
Yeah, I've got a question for all of you. Maybe start off with Jackie or John. If you do buy a commercial theme and this hasn't been done, how hard is it to knock it into shape where it is translation friendly, language friendly?
You talking about for the admin, the back end?
Well, in general, how hard is it to, if it's not been done originally?
I got to go through all the code and put a text domain in there, and it's a bit of work to do that.
So if you think, folks, that you've got a your audience is going to be multilingual, or it's a foreign, you're going to be selling maybe e-commerce not only in Canada or in North America, but in other language areas, it's something that should be on your list, shouldn't it, folks? You should be aware of, shouldn't you?
For real.
Yep, they're nodding their heads. Right. I think I'm putting them to sleep, folks, but let's go on forward. This is an interesting one, page builders. Well, this goes with the Army Swiss knife where we began this conversation. I despise themes that have these page layouts built in. It just kind of makes me cringe with. And a lot of them do it, and they use what John mentioned, visual
destroyer.
Yes.
They love money that in, don't they? So off you go, Sally. I think I've got you waking you up with that, haven't I, Sally?
Dear Lord, yes. I have occasionally, been hired by somebody who had one of those themes with Visual Composer built into it, because for some reason that's the one they always build into the themes, and it needs an up.
It's a top seller. It's on
right up there with Slider Revolution.
Right, as a page builder. I don't know, but as something built into a theme, it's very problematic because inevitably Visual Composer needs an update the client doesn't have a license for Visual Composer because it came with the theme, they can't update it. And and there's been at least one security issue around that with that specific plugin. And certainly, there were some with Slider Revolution. There was the Tim Thumb thing back in the day. And the big issue is always where these things are built into themes. So, if you're going to use a page builder, buy it separately as a plugin. Don't get it bundled into the theme, because then again, if you change themes, you will still keep whatever you have built in your page builder. I'm not a big fan of page builders. Bill is asking us what the best page builder plugin for Genesis is. The page builder plugin I prefer is Beaver Builder, not specifically because of its Genesis friendliness, although there's a plugin to help you use it with Genesis, but because if you turn it off, it doesn't leave you a string of shortcodes. It leaves your actual content in HTML. It won't have the layout that it did, but at least your content will be there.
Yeah, I like to ask Jackie about that, because when I've asked that, Bill's asked that, that's what I say about Genesis. If you're looking for a visual editor, look at Beaver Builder with Genesis. Would you agree with that, Jackie?
Absolutely. It seems to be very popular. I haven't used it with any of the themes that I've worked on, but I've heard good things about it. So if I had a client that wanted to be able to tweak their design and make changes to it once it was delivered,
that's very diplomatically put, Jackie.
Well, you make it, or because I think a lot of times they want different layouts for specific pages, or they may want to change things. And I try to leave, like I said, it all depends on your client. If you have a client that's comfortable writing HTML, that's different than a client that really is only going to be able to work in some visual editor. So those are two completely different things. If you can write HTML, well, you can give them instructions on how to set up columns, do all of these things, and have it be responsive and easy. But if that's not where they're at, then you need to be giving them some kind of visual tool that they can use. And I personally think that's where most of that design stuff is going to end up going in the future anyway. I think, I like writing in HTML, but I realize it's a really archaic way of building out layouts and doing things. So I pretty much assume that this is all going to go away at some point. It'll be much easier. You'll be able to move objects all around and organize things on pages. I don't know how long it's going to take.
You want to go back to Dreamweaver, Jackie?
Goddess help us.
No, but I do. I mean, just look at what the customizer is doing in WordPress now. I mean, the ability to change your design and make changes to your layout is already starting to be built in. It's easier for your
client to have as much of a WYSIWYG environment as possible. Yeah. You can also be really misled. I mean, I worked on a project where the person who ended up bringing me in, who was really mainly a content person, had been trying to basically build a specific layout of product categories with Visual Composer. And she spent days on this. It was just, and it's sort of like, I spent half an hour writing code and got something that would actually automatically update without you having to go in and add a new category every time there was a new category. So there are some things that I think is always going to be better to try to set up programmatically.
Yeah, I personally see it as a balance. I agree with Jackie, and you, Sally, it's just a balance, but a client should be able to do, there's certain things without something like Beaver Builder, which you think would be possible and isn't outrageous to want it as a client, and they just can't do it. So that's where, but also I agree with you, Sally, there's a level where that's where you should get somebody in that knows what they're doing, and it's just not worth messing around.
And unfortunately, your clients aren't necessarily going to know that they shouldn't do it this way until after they've spent a lot of time and effort trying to do it.
Yeah. So I think what we say to people as advice, folks, is page builders, they're great. They're not great when they're inbuilt with the theme. maybe run to the hills where you're looking at a theme that you like the look of, but they're going to supposedly supply this internal page builder that it's not going to, in the long run, going to work out that well. I'm just going to add something that wasn't on my original list. I'm not going to mention them, but I've been to, it was about a couple of years ago, and I had the misfortune of going a very highly recommended theme shop, and I bought this theme, and it was for actually a restaurant, and it had a really nice home page. And then when we delve in it, I have never seen a theme with as many short codes as this theme. It's still in my memory banks, this theme. But I'm not against short codes. I think in the right place, there's a couple of plugins. There's I forgot its name, the really popular short code plugin that you can get, and they're great. But I always remember this. This was the biggest dog's breath of a Premiere theme I've ever come across. Have you had any of that, folks? I think that's the other thing that, that's why you got to look at the comments, because it will soon fill up. I can't change this home page. It's got all these short codes all over it. That's why you should read it. What do you think, Sally?
I went to a presentation at WordCamp Los Angeles about choosing themes, and one of the things the speaker pointed out is short code is code. Short codes can be handy for developers who understand something about what the short code means and how it works. I mean, I've used the display post short code plugin often to good effect because it's very simple. It's very simple for me. But the thing is, my client is like, well, but where does the content on this page come from? I don't understand. I went to edit that page and I didn't see anything of what shows on it. So short codes are kind of an issue for clients that way, even when you're not dealing with something like, everything is lost. I mean, in the case of display post short codes, what it's doing is pulling in content that's actually stored as content in your database, but it's somewhere else. It's in another page. It's a series of posts. And you want to display them in a place other than where they naturally live, versus, all of the content would simply disappear forever if you didn't have the, whatever is creating the short codes. But the issue is still the same in terms of how that works. And it is, it's kind of tough to figure it out. Genesis likes to build home pages out of widgets, and that too can be sometimes confusing for clients. Because what's a widget and why do I have to go over here and why does it, I think it's a little better than trying to figure out short codes, but it's still kind of confusing to set up. And it's sort of a problem. How do you let people enter content into something with a layout that's not a traditional page layout? You can build something for people in ACF, and then it's very clear. You put this part here, you put this part here, you put it. That's great on the interface end. It's not so great on the performance and content storage end, because everything is stored as meta, and post meta is harder to search and slower to load, and ACF makes 3 versions of everything. So your post meta tables fill up really fast. So there's trade-offs with anything you're gonna do on that end. And
but what I was saying, Sally, I've gone to supposedly highly recommended theme shops, and I've had the misfortune to download, and they don't talk about it. There's nothing in the this is a heavily-ized
right. They don't
code.
They don't necessarily tell you, and I think that's kind of a truth in advertising issue.
And at the bottom, we do not give refunds on themes.
Well, I think that you can often find out is, it's not necessarily very often that you'll get a refund on something like a theme or another software product, because how do they know that you're not still using it after they've given you your money back? Yeah. that's not so surprising. But yes, I mean, I'm learning things. I build most stuff on Genesis, and on especially the lower budget things where we want to, they don't want to pay for a lot of custom design. I will generally, start from one of the child themes that's pretty close already to what they want. And I'm working with one now where it turns out, it's sort of like, yeah, I'm not even going to let future clients know that this particular subset of third-party child themes exists, because it is too dependent on shortcodes to set up page layouts. And on top of that, it loads like 5 billion scripts. And it's so painfully script heavy that, even on the demo page for the sales site, it loads slowly. Never mind on my cheap clients, cheap hosting. So sort of like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again, because it's, it's annoying for me to work with, and it will be more confusing for them to work with than a, kind of your standard arrangement.
Yeah, I think it's a balance. But Jackie, obviously you were with Genesis, and in my experience, which is not expert at all, folks, but I dabble in it, is that most kind of commercial themes, child commercial themes, and from Studio Press, the homepage are highly widgetized. And some people got a thing against that, some people, but I think widgets are much more preferable than some homepage that's totally developed with shortcodes. What do you think, Jackie?
I agree. I'm not a big fan of the shortcodes. I think your theme should leave your database content the way it was when it found it, So if you decide to change themes, your stuff should be left the way it was originally. If you don't want that, all the content pages littered with shortcodes that don't apply anymore, and then you've got to go back and figure out a way to strip them out later. I've seen that and had that happen before. So I think a theme should just worry about the presentation of the content and shouldn't be making permanent changes into the content.
Yeah, and folks, if you're listening to this on the WP website, on YouTube channel, and that's one of the questions you want to read if you're in one of these marketplaces or in an actual theme shop website, and you're reading the comments, and they start talking about shortcodes. This should be on your list of pre-sale questions. Is this theme really heavily dependent on shortcodes? And if the reply is yes, maybe you should look at something else. What do you think, John? Would you agree with that?
Shortcodes are, I mean, the bottom line is you want to make something that's, you want to give the client something that's client proof. Basically it's got to be easy for them to wrap their head around how to alter, a page, how to edit a page. And I think that widgets or even ACF is a better answer for that than shortcodes, because what happens when you have a theme like Divi or many of the various themes that you'll find on Theme Forest is you're locked into that theme.
Yeah, this is the other thing. I've got nothing against elegant themes. I think I'm right here. Maybe you can put me wrong, John, or Sally or Jackie, is that they don't all come from one developer team. They're a library of different themes that have been developed by different developers, and then they go in and they're branded under the elegant theme. But I hate Divi. I've been involved with some projects where we've had to go in and sort that crap out. And it's a freaking nightmare. And people keep going on and on about elegant themes. They're not. Am I being terrible? Am I being terrible? Am I being English nasty here, John?
No, because I especially a couple of years ago, I was doing like a lot of stuff with elegant themes.
JavaScript. Some of the JavaScript I've come across in there. I've just kind of shook my head.
My feeling is they're really kind of pushing Divi at this point. and they're not really doing too much with any of the other things in their catalog. I mean, they're kind of all the same. I mean, as far as like how they work structurally, there's better theme shops out there.
They're good at their SEO.
Yeah, they have really good SEO. I mean, like Google WordPress themes, they're like right up at the top. If you Google like, I mean, they've done really smart with their content marketing, like with their blog. Most any question that you would Google about WordPress, they're somewhere up near the top if they have an article about it. So their SEO is on point. But the big, the bigger, but. Like I said, like Divi is like that's like their moonshot. I mean, Divi is like their main product. They lucked into something there, or they, and so they're just pushing that. The other ones are just there.
I'm updating a site that I built on an elegant theme in 2011. And it's sort of like, God, I knew too little then. I mean, I learned fairly quickly that it was, going to be a pain to customize if it wasn't something that you could use their inbuilt customizer for.
You're being very diplomatic there, Sally.
But it's the thing about their themes back in 2011 was they were really pretty themes. If you wanted them to use, if you wanted nothing but to use them out of the box, you'd get something that was attractive. And then they did kind of make everything responsive pretty quickly. But
it was a great deal, wasn't it?
$40 a year or something for the
Was it $89 or something? You get like 200, 300 themes.
I know it's not. It was never as many as that, but it was a good number of themes. It was, it came down to about a dollar a theme per year, and that was pretty good. But I've definitely moved away from that.
Dude, you had to work on one.
They do quite a bit of stuff with short codes for things.
He's going to write to me, isn't he, Sally? I've got the name of the CEO of Elegant. He's going to write to me.
Yes, perhaps so.
I'm on his death list now.
And I know people who love Divi, and okay, that's but. It's
I'm
not something that I want to work with anymore. And I think the problem with themes like Divi is it's not that easy to create all the fancy stuff that you see in the in the demos, as with sort of the kitchen sink themes. Just because you don't have to write code doesn't mean you have to do any. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy to learn and to use. And then, even though they put out a Divi plugin that would work with other sites. Other themes. If you turn it off, you just have a mess of short codes. It's pretty much the same issue as Visual Composer or most of those page builders.
Yeah, I think we need to move on because I think I've embarrassed myself and I've been mean. I feel a bit like I've been a bit mean, but I just couldn't resist it. The English comes out of me, unfortunately, folks.
It's that British penchant for calling a spade a bloody shovel.
Yeah. That's why I become a maintenance guy. I got burnt out making these themes. I'm sorry, and trying to adapt them. I have a simpler life now. Let's go on to SEO friendliness.
I think you skipped the support options.
Yeah, well, the support options. Yeah, all right, and Sally.
I mean, just briefly, that is theoretically at least one of the things you're paying for, right? Is to get support. So, there should be adequate support. There are things that don't fall under standard support. Tell me how to do all this custom stuff. No, that probably isn't support, but there should be support.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why I was thinking about skipping it is that obviously we could talk about the dramatic changes in Theme Forest around their support options, but also feel that's a bit of a rabbit warren to go down. But in general, folks, if you're looking, what are the support choices after the first year? How much is it going to cost to keep getting your updates? And updates are important, folks, because if your theme doesn't keep getting updated, it becomes a security issue. And sorting out a hacked site. I was looking. There was I can't find the URL, but they said the average cost of sorting out a really hacked website is around $2,000. So you want to kind of avoid getting there. So having an updated theme, and that's regularly updated and it keeps on top of this is important. So yeah, look at that. So maybe look at the SEO friendliness because. Because wasn't it with Jackie? Isn't there been some updates to the Genesis framework around SEO that caused some minor troubles past month or something? Months, wasn't there? Or am I?
I don't remember anything about that. I mean, basically,
maybe the headline, the H1, there was a little bit of a glitch between 2.24 and 2.26. Somewhere in there was a little bit of a problem with that, but it was minor,
right,
and
it
got
title,
fixed very quickly.
Whether it had what kind of heading tag it had on it, because.
So in both your opinions, it was minor because there's a couple of people that do blabs that really blown that up as being a really major problem. But both of you think it was there, but it was a minor
it's been
problem.
Fixed.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a big issue. And that also rolls back to the support thing, which is, one of the reasons I chose Genesis and I really like working in Genesis is, I've got grandfathered in when I bought the all-in-one package.
I know they include the third-party themes.
It has lifetime support on that. And that's one of the reasons why I really like the framework, because that framework keeps getting updated and it doesn't overwrite your child themes. And so, you can go in and make changes to your child theme as time goes by. But really the security things and the other important updates that are come right through that framework. And I really like that part of it.
John, have you got any advice around SEO issues or anything when somebody's looking at a non-Genesis? I know they're not seeing the light and they should be buying Genesis, John, but no, that's English sarcasm. But if they're looking at a general commercial theme, have you got any tips or insights on maybe what they should be thinking about around SEO?
Yeah, sure. So I know that Genesis, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie and Sally, but I think it comes like with some sort of schema markup, like out of the box, right? Okay. So that's definitely one thing that you can look at when it comes to themes. And again, that's like why it might be worth hiring someone like, Sally or Jonathan or Jackie to, help you pick out a theme. I would say look at what kind of structured markup it has, whether it has micro formats or schema in there. Say if there's a contact page template, does it provide a place for map, address, stuff like that? What kind of, I would say for SEO, just look at the markup itself, what kind of stuff is in there.
Yeah. Which is going to be problematic for the average, buyer of one of these
they don't know,
isn't it? Because I would say they don't know, do they? So a lot of what we've just said is double Dutch to the average
blah, blah,
business.
Blah, blah, blah.
But you may find blog posts that are written that would review sites, themes that are SEO friendly. Do start doing if you're a DIY, do some research on that, read about it, see what people are saying about specific themes or frameworks and the good things with it, the challenges with it, especially if you're interested in a specific, area of it like SEO or, updates and things like that and how frequently things are updated.
Yeah.
You should be able to find out quite a bit of
info. I would recommend contact your nearest WordPress meetup. You can email the organizer of any WordPress meetup and ask them to put out a question to their meetup members if you want recommendations for something, or and so people with some experience can give you some input. And I've known people who did basically code review of premium themes that their clients were considering using. So they said the client likes this, and they said, I'll take a look at it and tell you what I think about the code, and is this a mess? Is this reasonably well constructed?
Yeah, because I think, one of the things is, and it's back to the Swiss Army things, like what Sally said, they've got 20 sliders in, and that you might choose one, but they're still loading all that code in. They're still loading it all in, and it's just going to be a dog in slowness, which is really going to affect your SEO. And really, back to our original, the news section, folks, choosing a really crappy, cheap hosting provider with a Swiss Army crappy WordPress commercial theme, that's the worst of all worlds. That's going to not give you great SEO results, because you're dealing with a major issue which Google really is looking at around, your website performance, basically, which is down to the kind of experience somebody's going to have when they come to your website. If it takes like 9 seconds to load up, they're not going to wait 9 seconds. But to kind of what I say, I think also you touched something really great, Sally, is that I used to get a bit worked out about the businesses that were doing it or them all themselves, but I think it was me really, because you get when a business is starting up, they're normally cash poor, but time, they've got a lot of time. But then I take on what John says is, yeah, they've got a lot of time, but maybe they should still be utilising that time getting actual clients rather than mucking around with a website. So that's got a duality to it. But most of these do it all types is that they're resource short, but they've got plenty of time on their hands. But I also think it would save them a lot of money if they went to a meetup and they just hired somebody for an hour, 2 hours, just to give them a consultation, and they look at some themes, and I think that a developer quite happy to do that. They're still making a decent
and it's not
profit,
a large outlay,
and you'll be saving them a lot of heartache buying a heap of crap. Won't they be avoiding buying a ton of themes? Because these themes cost between $50 to $200, and if you start buying 2-3 themes, it still mounts up, doesn't it?
Well, part of the problem. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just say this really quick and let you jump in. Part of the problem is it goes the other way around. They pick the theme first and then want you to do whatever they want you to do to it, and that's it backwards.
Yeah. One other thing too that I've just noticed lately is there's a lot of pretty themes. But if you actually, sit down, get an iPad out and browse the site and want to read posts or articles that are written, if the design is such that the font is very faded, very light on the background, and
which
just
goes back to
readability
accessibility,
issues
some
alone,
of which
that
is
would be
adequate contrast.
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. I've looked at many sites lately that I'm browsing on my iPad, and I'm thinking, nobody really ever looked at this to see if this would be something that's going to be easy to read and easy to absorb the content. The whole reason you have the site is for communication. And if pretty is your only focus and you're not taking into account whether or not this is going to be actually easy to read and, the spacing is done properly and just the fonts are too thin and too light and you're struggling trying to read it on your device. And I often think, I'd spend more time here if I could actually read this easier. And so that's another thing when you're evaluating a theme is get your iPad out or your phone out or device out and sit and just browse it and look at their sample pages and things. If you find it difficult to read the text on there, so are your viewers.
Jackie, it doesn't matter, Jackie. I remember 2 years ago, I was with a CEO of a WooCommerce site, and he turned around to me and said, "Jonathan, you're a nice guy, but this homepage doesn't buzz. There's no buzz, Jonathan. Can't you give us buzz?"
Yeah, I mean, there are people who want things because they're trendy, and it's sort of like, it's like people want sliders, and they don't care that there's all this research that shows they don't convert, they're not good for SEO, they're not good for accessibility. No, I want sliders, I want parallax, I want whatever looks trendy, I want flying things all over my site. It's like, yeah, you want GeoCities.
Well, and that's one aspect. I'm not even just talking about the content on a page, being able to comfortably read it. And I was looking at one yesterday, or I can't remember. They had a barnwood design on the back of the page, right? So the whole thing was a barnwood. And then they had these blocks of tan text on top of that. And I was thinking, whoever designed this never looked at this and actually really evaluated, is this really a proper way to present this information? I mean, it looked nice, it was cute and everything,
Jackie,
but I thought to myself,
Jackie, when I ever have a client like that, I always say meerkats. If you want to convert, get the meerkats on the website.
Meerkats.
It's my secret.
Right.
Who can resist me? Who can resist meerkats?
You're totally right, Jackie. There was a great presentation at WordCamp LAX about not about meerkats, not even about lolcats.
We're moving on, Jonathan.
About designing for older readers. And by now I'm pretty much falling into the older readers department. I haven't worn these all my life. And if I can't read the font with my glasses on, it's too small. Or it's too faint.
Or it's too faded. I've even seen
the text is too light, or it's too thin, or it's too gray. And this sort of pseudo minimalism of the pale gray on white is very trendy right now, and it's not readable. Mm-hmm. I often find myself making fonts darker and making fonts larger on sites in order to it's like, all right, are all your customers under 25? No? Okay, we're increasing the font size.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, Sally. Well said, folks, by listening. And don't take any notice of me and my meerkats. I'm just bonkers. But I think Sally and Jackie and John were pointing out is where it comes to choosing your theme, folks, is don't be totally influenced by its just visual look. Think about your customer and... those sliders might look nice, but are they really getting across the key benefit that you've got to get across to your clients, your hopeful new clients, that you're going to come to your website and decide to either hire you or buy your product or whatever you're attempting to get across? And having something really flashy and, think about it a bit. And I think that's what both of my three panelists are trying. Would that be? Am I talking any sense?
You're not waffling.
Yes, this is perfectly
sensible.
No, you're doing. I think the content itself. I go to many sites that have very plain, very boring template, great content on it, easy to read. I tend to stay on there and go through and read them. I like that. And it's minimal. I'm not even saying that there's an issue with that. I'm just saying that it is readable, though. And it is organized in a way it's not distracting. I can read it. And I do like that. And I think that goes to the point that, put more emphasis on what you're writing down instead of how you're presenting it sometimes is also just as important.
Craigslist is the ultimate demonstration of the fact that your content is more important than your design, right?
Well, totally. Let's go
I don't want to build sites that look like Craigslist, but there's basically no styling whatsoever, but it's a very successful site because there's stuff on it that people want. And, you don't have to make your site ugly, but it probably doesn't need every single piece of bling that you can conceive of putting into it either.
How about building landing?
John, you've been very quiet. You haven't said anything.
Yeah, anyway, I was just going to say, this is not really a WordPress theme problem. It's a UI design problem like in our industry right now, because there is so much monkey see, monkey do. I saw this on Dribbble, so let's everybody do it. And that's how we think as an industry. And so I just dropped this link in here. The web is all about the web is 95% typography. This was an article I read when I was first breaking into the web. It's still true today. Legibility is, most of the design. You're trying to communicate. And having like terrible contrast, it might get you, a ton of likes on Dribble, but it's not gonna,
right.
do good.
Once you're actually using it, it's a different thing.
Yeah. So, and that's just the thing. Like designers have to stop designing for other designers, design for customers. So there you go.
Yes, and that's a great article, and things have not changed since 2006 in that particular respect.
No, I don't think the fundamentals have really, Sally. I think obviously in technology terms they've moved on dramatically, but I think in information planning, topography, all the fundamentals, I think the fundamentals are, obviously how a font is seen on a screen is different than on print, and some of but that they were covered by 206 and by 208 it was well known the differences, but I think those fundamentals still apply now as they did then. And I do agree with John. I do understand it, but it also is, I find it a bit annoying, this kind of monkey. We saw it on this site, so it's got to, we're going with that look where it does, you'd be better off going some other direction, but it is what it is, isn't it? So I kind of muffed up on this. I think we've covered some great stuff. I managed to put about 4 versions of this show on Blab, and I have no idea why it kept the old version, but I'm sure Bill will inform me where I went wrong. And then we pushed this, and we're getting some more people in the room, but I think we've covered some great stuff, though. Got any kind of end comments before we see if we've got anybody that's got any questions that want to join us? And what do you think, Jackie? Got any kind of ending thoughts to this mammoth about choosing the right commercial theme, Jackie?
I think the ending thought is do your research and don't buy it just because of how it visually looks. Spend some time and take it apart and see what makes it all work and if it's a good fit for you. So first thing, ask yourself why you're looking for a theme, what's the purpose of it, and go with something that is not a Swiss Army knife. Yeah. That would be
actually there are a couple of things that have come to mind is that a lot of people, sort of ordinary clients out there seem to pick themes based on completely the wrong criteria. Like it's because of the color or because of the types of, because of the types of photos. I mean, we had, I'm going to blank out on her, on her name, but somebody who discovered that she had trouble convincing end user clients that a theme would be, good for a doctor's office if it didn't have stock photos of medical people in the theme demo. And the truth, but so apparently this is really a big issue, and you do need special functionality for certain types of sites. You probably want menu stuff if it's a restaurant and event stuff for this and so on. But all of that should come from plugins anyway. But I think people choose it because it says this is a theme for lawyers, or this is a theme for doctors, or this is a theme for and they put, and there's nothing special about the theme. It just happens to have stock photos relating to that, which don't actually even come with the theme in the demo, or they choose it because this. It's blue and I have blue in my logo, and those are the things that are easiest to change. What you want to look at it much more is the structure, the layout. Is the homepage layout similar to what I want? Because somebody's going to have to go dig in the code probably if you need a different layout, or you're going to need a page builder or something like that. Things like contrast can be adjusted very easily with CSS, but there should be some way to do that, or you should understand that you'd have to hire someone to do it. Look at it maybe through some of those accessibility tester, this is what your website looks like to people who are colorblind viewers. But yeah, it's, the theme, a lot of the things which really matter about themes are very hard for end users to check, because they don't know what schema markup looks like for SEO. They don't know how to click the inspect tool on their browser. So I think it kind of comes back to, it's worth asking for an expert recommendation on a theme. If you see something that you really like, and you don't know any WordPress developers, go to meetup.com, find your nearest meetup, contact the meetup organizer. These are people who are programmed to be helpful, and they can point you at the right direction.
So some are. What's your final words, John?
Oh, no, I agree with Sally. People don't know what they don't know. And because here's the thing. Once you pick the theme, that's what you're going to go with. And if the code base is going to make your site slow and bogged down, that's going to do you no favors. And that's going to have like big repercussions. So it is worth, reaching out and finding, paying a consultant to help you pick out a theme and, get their advice, get their help, instead of trying to do it yourself. I also agree with what you say, like about positioning. Like there's a lot of themes, they're the exact same theme, just one's got doctor photos, and so it's a theme for doctors. And it's a lot of education. So.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap up this recording. We'll be still on for the rest of the blab. We've got any questions, but for the recorded part of the show, folks, we're going to end here. We're probably going to be discussing commercial themes on the podcast next week with John. And I just want to say thanks so much, Sally, and also Jackie, for coming on the show. I think we've covered some really interesting stuff. Like I say, you'll be able to watch this as a replay. It will be on the YouTube channel, where we've got quite a few subscribers. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to the WP-Tonic website. We've got a load of information on there about all sorts of things about WordPress. And we'll see you next Saturday for another extensive blab about WordPress. Bye.